In the spirit of Halloween, paranormal or not, what is the scariest, creepiest or most unsettling experience of your life? I was in my room in a colonial-era house packing my bag to leave on a multi-week trip overseas around 3 or 4 a.m. My shoes started falling down off of my shoe rack in the closet. I put them back and they fell down again. Starting to get a little creeped out, as that had never happened in the months of living there. I put the shoes on the rack again and tried to make them fall off by bumping the back, shaking the shoe rack, etc., and they didn't fall down. As I finished packing my bag, a pair of shoes literally flew off the shoe rack. I noped the fuck out. The original owner had died in the house and my dad had seen the ghost of the woman in the room she died. That was probably the most creepy thing, and I have personally seen a ghost of a man, not as creepy as this. There's also a Ouija board experience involving me which was pretty creepy as well. When I was a kid I was home in bed with my mom. I was around 5, so I had climbed in with her because my dad was away on a business trip out of town. I climbed out of bed in the middle of the night to go into the kitchen to get some juice. I make my way to the kitchen and a man wearing a paper Kroger bag over his face appears and ushers me back to the room. He waited until I got back in bed, then he went into my parents' closet for a few minutes, came out, looked our way, then left the room. My mom slept through the entire thing and is convinced that I dreamed it. But it did happen and at the time it wasn't scary, but looking back it gives me the chills. When I was a teen I worked at a cable access studio and made mini movies. My neighbors gave me their father's old video camera. They told me he never used it but it didn't seem to work anymore and had a tape jammed in it. I fixed it up and on the tape was hours of him driving around at night and filming people through their windows. Nothing overly sexual was on it but there is something unsettling about seeing peeping Tom footage of a guy eating dinner with his family or over 20 minutes of some girls dancing around in their room. Posted this a while ago in another thread. Grew up in an old one-room schoolhouse in southeastern PA built in 1815 according to my pops. In the basement was a small wooden door to the original well. It was a completely unfinished basement, dark and dank and moldy. Went down to do laundry one afternoon and the small wooden door was open. Seeing as how the original well was covered by a thick slab of stone we never had any reason to go in there. So I closed the door, and went about my business of doing laundry. Went down an hour later to move the laundry along and the door was open again. At that point I was a bit freaked out but thought nothing of it. I was always the kid who stayed up late to watch TV, nice alone time when you live in a house with 7 people. Laying with my dog watching TV and she started to growl very low and her hair was standing up. She did this from time to time as there were woods behind the house and she could smell/hear animals moving around. She jumped off the couch and ran straight to her kennel with a whimper. Muted the TV to see if I could hear anything. Started hearing this low-range noise that progressively got louder and louder, almost like a heartbeat with each beat just a bit louder, until I could make it out as a bunch of children laughing. Ran to bed and damn near cried myself to sleep that night. Woke up the next morning, went into the basement, the small wooden door was laying on the ground like it had been broken down from the inside. Hinges broken out of the jamb and everything. Creepiest thing I have ever experienced. Still have the pics if anyone wants to see them. The night my grandmother died I had a dream that she visited me. She was wearing an unusual outfit I had never seen, a blue dress with weird pearl-like piping around the collar and waist. I didn't think it was more than a dream until years later I told my mom about it. She turned white and said that my grandmother had visited her as well. The real creepy thing is that my mom described the same blue dresses. I know there is a rational explanation for this but it is what I saw. It was a pitch-black, rural road in Pakistan. The kind of road that there are simply no cars, no buses, no domiciles, no farms, nothing. Absolutely nothing but undeveloped land on both sides of the road, just open, arid land. What I'm saying is, there is nothing out here, when in our car headlights I definitely see something moving in the distance. I'm in the passenger seat, and this figure is on my side, and at first, very first, it seems like a large animal, like a cow or buffalo, or something. BC it walks very not human. As the driver slows down, and starts the blaring the horn to alert this thing, it turns its head and it's a very, very frightening old face of a woman, with orange ringlets framing her face, and her eyes are really black. But this is not the scariest part. The scariest part is that I could clearly make out, was that her hair was not human-like, and that while she stood on two legs, the feet at the bottom were completely turned around. Backwards. Her feet were backwards. I had a panic attack and passed out in the car. I know it's entirely normal, but having to see it happen firsthand after watching so many horror movies in my life, my survival instincts kicked in. So I worked the overnight flights at a small airport. We only had one flight that came in around 10 to 11 p.m., sometimes as late as 1 a.m. Plane comes in, people get off, bags dropped off, deal with complaints, clean plane, seal it up, go home. Well, this was a nice night with a full moon. My co-worker, a French-Canadian mother of two who has no plurals in her version of English, was inside doing some paperwork after we'd cleaned the plane. There's no one else there that late at night. It was my job to do the heavy lifting and dirty jobs, as I volunteered, and she couldn't handle the smell of the lav cart. Anyways, I sealed the plane and did a final once-over to check for any damage, panels and doors closed, and cones set out properly. I noticed across the airport on the hills outside the fence line there was this white blurriness. Probably fog. It'll hit once we leave. Go to the GPU, unplug it, and shut it off. As I'm winding up the cord, I look over and the fog has advanced over the runway with remarkable speed. Again, a quiet moonlight night and fog is advancing like something out of the mist at me. I put the sock on the cord plug and run like hell to the building. B-movie style, the fog gets to the building right as I close the door. Now the whole place is blanketed in this thick murder fog. Me and my co-worker just stare at it out the window of the garage going, I know I'm paranoid, but sure as hell not taking any chances. We promptly left and drove the hell away before we get caught in a bad slasher flick. I listened to an exorcism on Coast to Coast, then went to pee. When I left my room, I saw a face hovering in the air across the living room for me. It was clear as day, its eyes followed me for a second, I blinked, and it was gone. I don't fuck with the supernatural. I have strange memories from when I was a kid, from 2 to 4 years old, maybe even younger. Whether they're real or not, I can't tell you. I remember being alone in my bedroom at night, sitting in my crib with my legs dangling out between the bars. Something would grab my ankles and slowly pull my legs under the crib. I'd hear a woman softly calling my name as well. I used to be dropped off for daycare at this woman's house before I started kindergarten. The lady who ran it usually made us take nap time after a few hours. I remember laying down in the nap room with the other kids. They fell asleep, but I was awake because something was shaking my leg. I remember seeing a man and woman I didn't know in the room, talking to each other and to me. That might not be that strange, but they were wearing wedding clothes, like a tuxedo and a wedding dress. Every time that we were sent to that room for nap time, I would see these people. One more. This one I have no doubt actually happened, because I was about 12 years old and it was the middle of day, sometime during summer break. Whether or not it was supernatural, I don't know. I just know that it scared the shit out of me. Me and my friend were playing with a homemade Ouija board in his driveway, with our backs to the closed wooden garage door. No one else was home. My friend asked where the spirit was, and the pointer twisted around and moved off the board. It moved across the concrete between the two of us and stopped at the garage door. My friend told the spirit to prove it. The garage suddenly lurched out, as if someone had sprinted at it from the other side and slammed into it. I jumped up and ran home, left my bike there for 2 days before I went back for it. At my parents' house, all bedrooms are on the second floor. My parents' bedroom at the very back of the house and mine at the very front, with my sister's room sharing a diagonal wall with mine and a door a couple feet from mine. Right outside my door is a drop-down ladder to the attic. It was well past midnight, I am the youngest, my sister was in college, and my parents were asleep. I was on my laptop, on Facebook and playing flash games. It was about that time that I needed to go to bed so I could function at school, when suddenly from the other side of the room, bang bang. The lamp shuts off instantly and the only light in the entire room is my laptop shining directly into my face, causing the room to be even more pitch black. The sockets are loose in my room, but the bang was loud enough to shake my room and cause my lamp to lose its connection. I turned my laptop around and turned the brightness up. Nothing. I reached down and plugged the lamp back in without averting my eyes from the door on the opposite end of the room. Okay, I thought, Terry's 3 possibilities. 1. My sister is home and annoyed with me. 2. There is a rather fat raccoon that just broke through 2 floorboards in rapid succession. Or 3. Someone was up in the attic and jumped up and down, stomping their feet twice. But my sister is in Cali, that raccoon would have to be way too obese, and I never heard any footprints or anything go into the attic. So I chose option 3 in my head and sat there waiting for another noise, barely breathing, too afraid of what would happen should I open the door, and the attic opened with the ladder extending close to my door. I got on Facebook again and messaged a couple people to tell them what was going on and that I was scared. I sat there for about 2 hours before my mind gave up and I passed out. The next morning, my lamp was still on and my parents never heard a thing. I tried explaining it to them, but they tried to convince themselves that it was only an animal that got in the attic. To this day, I can only speculate on what it could have been.